Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Silver Dragon Crafts. I know it's been a minute or two since I've posted a video, but once again life got in the way. So this time I've got an observatory that I built. I know some other guys have already built some observatories, but this is my take on it. And yeah, it is 33 minutes in part one, but there's some good stuff in here, some good information and some good techniques. So let's go ahead and get started. Here I was just building the base, and then this is a circular jig that I made by myself, and I'm cutting out a circle from a circle so that I can use the outer ring as the walls of the actual observatory. Okay, here I'm cutting out what would be the inside of the circle, or the inside of the observatory. I'm cutting out the inside wall so that you can see what's going to be in the rooms that are on the different floors of the observatory. And I'll show a picture of that in a second. So I got to do all those there. And then that's what it looks like, and then I'll put the floors in. And you'll be able to see what's in the rooms. Here I'm using a piece of foam to raise the pencil up and just spinning the circle around so that the bricks are the same height all the way around. And then with my great camera work, what you can't see is I'm carefully putting in each individual brick. And then these are the floors for the rooms. And I'm marking on the sides because you can see both the top and the bottom of the floor when you look at the diorama. So I wanted to make sure that they actually lined up so it wasn't one board this way and on the top and a different board the other way on the bottom. So this way they line up and it looks like it's actually boards running the proper direction. Here I'm testing the styrofoam ball that's going to be used as the roof of the observatory. I dug it out with an X-Acto knife. I used an ice cream scoop. And then if you use a different sized styrofoam ball, it actually worked like sandpaper. And it made it the exact same thickness all the way around. Here I'm just using the hot pencil to form the rocks that the observatory is going to sit on. And yeah, the pencil actually fell off the table and onto the floor. So I went and grabbed the fire extinguisher just in case it happened again when I wasn't there. I always turn it off, of course, but I mean, you can't be too safe. Okay, these are the walls that are going to form the exterior of the library portion of the observatory. And I'm trying to make sure that the corner bricks interlock so that it looks a little bit more realistic. But yeah, you got to make sure you got a really sharp hobby knife, otherwise it's going to pull the foam instead of cut it. And then much to my surprise, it actually worked. And there's not big gaps or anything. It looks really pretty decent. But you'll see more of that a little bit later in the video. Here I'm just measuring to make sure the bricks are the proper size. Yeah, this took a while to go around each and every brick, but it made them look a lot better than if you just went over it with one pass with a pen. But going around it would create nice rounded corners and nice deep grooves so that the bricks would actually stick out more than with just a single pass. It took quite a while, but the bricks actually looked really good in the end. You'll see the brickwork at the end. Now I'm doing the bricks on the inside of the rooms because it's definitely going to be visible, so I'm taking the time to do the same thing. Now this is Drydex, some kind of spackle. I'm putting it on the outside of the observatory roof. It goes on pink, it dries, and it turns white. And then I'm going to sand it later so it's nice and smooth. The styrofoam wasn't obviously smooth enough, so I did this crazy method to make it nice and smooth. This is how I created the bookshelves. Texturing with the wire brush. And then gluing them together. I made a lot. Actually, I just found some the other day. Some that I didn't even use, I forgot about. So I made too many, which is one of the reasons it took so long to get this video posted. And these are the joists for the floors, because the floors don't just float in the observatory, they have to be attached to the wall. And like I said, you can see the bottom and the top, so I wanted it to make at least some kind of sense that the walls were, or the floors were held up by something other than just planks. A little more texturing. Yeah, there's about 8 or 10 bookshelves. And here the spackle is actually nice and dry, and there was lots of pores and bumps and valleys, so I spent a lot of time sanding it. Well, apparently I didn't spend too much time sanding it. But here I'm cutting out a door for means of egress for the observatory. I definitely needed to change my blade at this point because I was having some issues with the cutting. Yeah, this graph paper turned out to be just right for the loft that I was building for the books. So I used the graph paper for how long to cut the posts, and yeah, if you happen to watch the Wizard's Library, you're definitely going to see a similarity between that loft and this one. But since the loft and the library worked out so well, apparently I just had it in my brain to do it again because it worked well and it looked good. Here I'm cutting out a window. I think I had changed my blade, so it probably came out, or it came out a lot more. Well, apparently not. There's the wood planks for the window, and then the flooring going into the loft. Now this is something cool. I found, well, you can find clock mechanisms at any hobby store or anywhere. Not anywhere, but you know, Amazon and whatnot. So I found one that doesn't tick. It's more like, I guess, like a Rolex would be, where it's a smooth motion all the way around instead of a ticking motion. So that's how I did the orrery. And that hole that I was digging was for the battery case to be included underneath the diorama. Here I'm making the area where the fire pit is going to go. That's going to have lights coming from underneath too, so it lights up. So it looks like there's actual embers or hot coals underneath. I was going to make a design in the bricks or the stones in the floor. I started out with that circle, but at some point it just kind of got eaten up and you can't really even see it in the final project. But I did have intentions of making a design in the floor. Here I'm just kind of piecing things together, seeing what's going to go where, if everything fits. That's where the fire pit's going to go, so I dig a hole so the light can come up through the bottom of the base. So here's what it's going to look like without all the accoutrements. Just making sure that that's going to fit. Here the spackle and everything is dry, it's nice and sanded. I'm cutting out a section of the roof because it's going to be able to open for the individuals to look through the telescope, and if the ceiling doesn't open, you're not going to see anything but ceiling. There's my new sanding machine. But it didn't really work on the roof sections. I gotta skinny those up a little bit, so I tried using the brush. I ended up using the hot pencil. They never really got as good as the roof section that the ball fit into. Here I'm using some cardboard to make the trim that's going to go around the roof so that the edges are nice and clean. I'm running the cardboard along the edge of the table so it bends instead of snaps and causes a crease. That seemed to work pretty well. That's what it's going to look like, and I'm going to paint it, of course, but I'm going to put some Mod Podge on the inside of the roof to make it not flaky and nice and smooth so it can be painted. I think I did a couple coats of this Mod Podge on there though, not just one. I'm probably only going to show one, but I know I did a lot more. I know I did at least two. But it fills in the holes and the pores or whatever you want to call them, and it made it so it could be nice and easy to paint. Here I'm cutting a section of the floor out because I cut a section of the wall out, but if I didn't cut the sections of the floor out, you wouldn't be able to see all the way into the back. And then the little hole that I put is for the ladder so the individuals inside can go up and down and access each room, and then up to the top where the telescope is going to be. Kind of looks like the Leaning Tower of Pisa there. That's kind of what it'll look like. Here's a bunch of the tables I made. There's the floors, the walls. Yeah, that was fun putting those wires through there. All the tables had a treatment from the wire brush. This is something that I saw from Max DM Crafting when he would push some of the bricks in instead of leaving some sticking out, and it made for a really interesting final effect on the wall. You'll see it in a little bit, but it's definitely more interesting than just a flat surface of bricks. in the old tin foil, aluminum foil, putting texture on the floor rock slabs. I gotta do all the walls and on the inside and the outside. There's where I was kind of teasing the cardboard to make sure that it didn't snap. Now everything that I built, the tables, the chairs, the bookshelves, the walls, everything's going to get a coat of Mod Podge black paint, a little bit of water. So everything gets the treatment. Yeah, thank you Jeremy at Black Magic Craft. So here's some gold and some gray. That I used to paint, I believe I used that to paint the cardboard. And then I made, instead of just plaster, I made some kind of crazy concoction with spackle and grout and water and glue and put it all over the floor slabs. And then I, of course, had to get it off the rocks and leave it in the grooves. So you'll see how that went here in a second. Not good. So then I end up using a wet paper towel and adding a little more elbow grease, and I think that's what did it. And there's nothing special about what I was using. Cotton ball, water ball, elbow grease. Water ball. Cotton ball, water, and elbow grease. But yeah, I almost had to go piece by piece to clean it off. Then a black wash to give it a little bit of aging. And boy did that stuff soak up the paint. It kind of turned a little bit too dark. I'm not thrilled with the finish floor, but and it definitely looks medieval and dirty and used, but I wanted the grout to be a little bit lighter, but I'll survive. Now, I haven't seen an actual telescope in about 40 years, back when I was in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. So building this telescope out of extra pieces and stuff that I had laying in the back closet was kind of a trick. I, of course, looked at pictures online and such. It came out pretty cool, and hopefully I remember to tell you what I used for the lens, because it's kind of an interesting piece of equipment. Here we're using real brown to paint the first coat of paint on the tables, chairs, bookshelves, and floors, I believe. And this is the base. I don't think it was for the orrery. I think it was for the telescope, but I don't think I ended up using it. That looks like the honey, I believe it's honeycomb, for a heavy dry brush to make the tables a little bit light brown. And then this is what I use for most of the bricks and stuff when I'm doing projects. There's a dark gray, a light gray, and a rain gray. I came up with this idea from going back to Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts when they used to show the star light show on the ceiling. So I painted it nice dark gray, or blue, sorry. And then a little bit later I take a white and a tiny little paintbrush and paint little dots on it. And you can see kind of constellations in the ceiling when you're looking at the top floor. A final quick dry brush on the telescope. Pull out the high spots and deepen the low spots. And I was touching up the trim that I made with the cardboard. Here's some gray, dark gray going on to the bricks for the wall. And then a heavy dry brush with a lighter gray. And these are the washes from Army Painter that I put on random bricks, just because you know bricks are not all the same color. And this comes out really pretty good. You'll see it in the end of this video and definitely at the end of the next one when I finish off the whole project. I mean, even right there you can see that looks pretty cool. I thought that turned out really well. Yeah, they're good. That turned out better than I had hoped. Definitely better than just plain old gray on every single brick. It took a while to paint all those individual bricks, but it's definitely worth it. So now here's a silver to put the final color on the outside of the dome for the observatory. This is just putting the shelves in the bookcases. Just dab a little glue on the back and each side. Slide it into the bookshelf and move on to the next one. Straighten it up a little bit. This is thick mud texture from Vallejo. I believe that I found out that I did not like the silver. So and it was too smooth and too shiny. You can see drips on the one piece that I just picked up. So I put this texture stuff on there, and that made it look a lot better. Funny thing, they actually make dome roofs for observatories in my town that I live in. I never knew it. I was over at the hardware store one day getting a propane tank filled up, and I said, "What do they make in that building there?" He said, "They make roofs for observatories." I'm like, "You're kidding me." So maybe that's where I got the idea to build this. Here I'm putting a wash on the door. Now I'm working on the hill that the observatory sits upon to give it a little extra height to make it closer to the clouds. Thank you, Icarus. He was the sun, I know. He went too close to the sun. I know he was also the sun. You know the story. But I use these bricks to fill in the empty spaces so I didn't use 30 pounds of Sculptamold. Which now I'm painting the textured part silver. And it definitely looks better than it did before. You can see and be the judge for yourself. Did you like the shiny part or do you like the textured part? You have to hold that for a long time for it to not pop up. I believe this is me creating a new telescope because I didn't like the first one. Well, if you can't tell, this is the sculpt a mold section of the video. And I'm using the sculpt a mold to fill in the hill and cover the bricks, or the extra foam that I had just glued down. And then we'll do some painting and some flocking and some other stuff to this when it dries, and it turns out to look pretty good too. Maybe it's not really the beginner's guide to dioramas anymore, maybe it's the intermediate guide to dioramas. Maybe I'm getting a little bit better at this stuff. Those are some clay plaster rocks that I made when we were doing the 48, let's build 48 plus houses. I had some extra plaster from when I did the stucco for the one building. And if you remember, if you saw it, I made some extra rocks, and that's them right there. That's them right there. Those are they. This be them. Those are the rocks. I wasn't an English major. Here's just a little black paint to maybe some Mod Podge in there. I think it's just, yeah, I think it's the Mod Podge and the black paint mixture to help solidify the sculpt mold and make it so that the base isn't white, the base is more dark, which is what you're going to find in nature. Mud is not white, it's brown or black or a more earthy tone. This is cool. These are grapes. Oh. They are grapes from like the thing that you find at Michael's, and I painted them by putting them on a pencil and spinning the pencil and holding the paintbrush steady, and it made it look like a planet. It was pretty cool. Hopefully I get a good close-up of it later, but they are for the Ori, and they definitely look like planets when they're spinning around. Here I'm melting the wisps on the flames of the torches that are on each level of the observatory. The hillside gets a layer of brown paint. I don't know what that was. Just an extreme close-up of something. Here I'm creating a chain to go around the loft so that people that are up on the loft looking at books or for books don't fall off. And then this is a technique I've seen on YouTube by several people, where when you have wires that you want to hide, it's kind of like when they make trees out of wires. You go ahead and cover it with hot glue. Some people use air drying clay and such, but I used the hot glue gun, and covered all the wires with a good layer of that. And then I will, a little bit later, I'll paint those and turn them into vines. Here's a dry brush on the hillside to make it look a little bit more realistic. Those wires kept getting in the way. I was getting so frustrated. There's some green paint on the vines. I use a lot of Woodland Scenics stuff. This is their scenic glue and some of their fine turf, I believe it was, to do the a little flocking on the hillside. Here I'm testing to make sure everything's glued down properly. Actually, I was just collecting all the extra fine turf, but luckily nothing fell off. A little more Woodland Scenics glue. You want to be kind of random when you're putting the glue on, because things grow randomly in nature. So just when you do flocking, don't do it all in the same 100% the same thing. Mix it up a little bit. Leave some blank. There's rocks showing. I'm going to put some grass in here in a little bit. But this one's getting pretty long. So that was a good place to stop, right in the middle of the flocking. I'm actually going to try and get part 2 out this week because you guys had to wait so long for these. So keep your eyes peeled. But here's a sneak peek of the finished product. The planets turned out to look pretty cool. The sun looks pretty cool. But thanks for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And keep your eyes open for part 2. It should be coming out pretty soon. I'm actually going to work on it tonight, so thanks a lot.